In this task, I'll perform an unsupervised classification of the multiband image. Unsupervised classification is used to cluster pixels in a raster image based on statistics only, without any user-defined training classes. It can be used to understand how many clusters or categories of similar pixels exist in an image. Although the method requires no user input to create the classified image, the output tends to require some post-classification operations to make the results more meaningful. To start, I'll enable the QGIS toolbox. I'll go to the Processing menu and choose Toolbox, and the toolbox opens as a panel on the right-hand side. This toolbox contains hundreds of tools for processing both raster and vector data. Many of the tools are imported from standalone FOSS4G projects, such as Goodle and Ogre, Grass, and Saga. For the unsupervised classification of this image, I'll be using a Saga tool. So I'll expand the Saga toolset, and the tool I'll be using is in the Imagery Classification toolbox called Cluster Analysis for Grids. So I'll double-click on this tool to open it up, and I'll click on the ellipsis button to choose my input raster dataset. I'll choose my method of cluster analysis, and I'll be using combined minimum distance / hill climbing. I'll change the number of clusters from 5 to 7. And there is an option to save the final result to a file on disk, but here I'll take the default, which is to save it to a temporary file. Then I'll simply click Run to run the cluster analysis. And this will take a moment to run, and you'll see a report window pop up while it's performing the analysis. I'll open the layer properties for the image and go to the Style tab so that I can symbolize the data into different colors for each cluster. By default, QGIS has chosen a single band gray renderer for this data, and I'll change that to single band pseudo color. I'll keep the random color setting, but I'll change the mode to equal interval, and I'll change the number of classes to 7, matching the number that I asked the analysis to create. And then I'll hit the Classify button. And here I'll go in and I'll edit these values. QGIS has chosen values that it thought would work, but I want this to be even numbers from 1 to 7. So I'll go in here and double click on each one and change it. And I'll change the corresponding label. These labels, I'm just going to make match the value. However, once you knew a particular cluster represented something like forest, you could go in there and type in the actual object that this cluster represented if you wanted to. Once that's done, I'll click OK. And now I see my image classified into the 7 clusters. And I could go in and change these colors if I wanted to better represent the object more intuitively, but for now I'll leave it as is. Finally, let's look at the statistics table. I'll right-click on this and choose Open Attribute Table. This shows the tabular results of the analysis. For example, the number of pixels or elements in each cluster. In the next task, you'll learn how to create a supervised classification using the freeware program Multispec, and then you'll see how to bring the results of that back into QGIS.